Hi, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today, we're going to be talking about this book, Neuroscience for Change at Work, Practical Insights to Overcome Workforce Resistance to Organizational Change. Oh, you've got one as well. And I've got Tibisay Vera and Melanie Franklin here with me today. Let's all put one up.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
And we can get a screenshot of that. We're going to be talking about the book. So Tibisay and Mel, tell us, where can people find you?
Okay, you can find me on capabilityforchange.com. I'm all over LinkedIn though, when I was looking less tired. But yeah, Melanie Franklin 1 on LinkedIn or capabilityforchange.com. You can find me all over that.
And you can find me in LinkedIn as well, Tibisay Vera, and PEPE and sparklingperformance.com.
Excellent. So, great book. Really enjoyed it. I mean, change is such a massive issue in any organization. I've worked for organizations where, you know, we've turned the company around and expected everybody to change with it. What was your inspiration for the book?
Yes. The first inspiration for me is when I went to companies, I always saw change going on and everybody were focusing how do we adapt to change. And the reality is based on the brain. We usually adapt to change, even if we do nothing. The inspiration is how do we actually adapt positively to change? How do we make a positive experience rather than badly adapt to change? Because even if we adapt, we can become cynic, we become disengaged, and so on. So making science easy, accessible, and people to understand the brain to support that positive adaptation was the main inspiration.
Mel?
I think for me, having led the UK Change Management Institute, now leading the change capability community, I think there's a break point in terms of change management practice where people are feeling that the old models are no longer fit for purpose because they treat each change as an individual entity, not linked to the pressure of all the other changes taking place. And I was looking for something that would actually help us cut through that. And I feel that understanding how the brain reacts to information, how the brain processes decisions, was really helpful. And I think it was that scientific piece of the feedback I've had from people who've read the book and are using the examples in the book is that it gives them sort of the scientific stardust to give greater credibility to the things that they're arguing for. So I thought that there was this break point where we needed to perhaps bring in something like a more scientific approach, and Neuroscience for Change absolutely made sense. I mean, this is my 10th book. And so trying to remain engaged and enthusiastic. It was a pleasure working with Tibby because it's her first book. So there's that contrast of enthusiasms. But I thought this was really important that we started to have something specific to organizational change to give people an understanding of neuroscience in a very practical setting.
And so, which leads me on to my next question, which is, how does understanding neuroscience give leaders a practical advantage?
I think from a practical point of view, I think sometimes this reinforces that what they're doing is already the right way to do things. Absolutely. But I think there's something else. It gives them an idea, and Tibby will talk more about this in a moment, I think. But when we talk about hacking the brain, creating a shortcut, which creates that visceral experience, the brain wants to work in this way. Let's curate the information. Let's provide activities within change that absolutely suit what the brain wants to do. And I think for me, it was ideas from the PEPE model that Tibby's going to talk about, which was about how can I reduce the pain associated with change, the anxiety, the fear of loss, of being misunderstood, not knowing how to work in the new way. How can I increase the pleasure, the opportunities, the feeling of benefits associated with change? And how can I reduce the energy that the brain needs to process all this new information? And I found the PEPE model to be really a very simple thing that I can implement at every level in an organization across every type of change, because everybody's human, everybody has a brain. So it's universal, it's simple, it's intuitive. And I think if I let Tibi then talk about that PEPE model, I think that will bring it to life as well.
Tibi.
Yes, that's right. And I always like to start saying that everybody, as Melanie said, has a brain, and organizations is just a combination, a group of brains, right? And as a result, it's much easier to work with the biology in our side rather than against us. And this is the whole idea of PEPE. The idea of PEPE is trying to find basically 4 domains, as Melanie was saying. It is pain. What can we do to change the perception of pain, or to actually provide pleasure? Because it's possible to get pleasure during change. And all what we do is playing with our biology. PEPE model also talk about energy. How can we save energy? Our brain consumes too much energy. We can really practically at a habit level, and this habit could be individual or it could be at organizational level. We can do things systematically to actually provide energy to people. It helps to the change but fatigue. We can also talk about peaks and valleys, which I think is one of the, according to the feedback of the program and the book that people have read, is one of people like the most. We usually are all the time in peaks during change. We are with our resources high, high, and high. How can we do to control that? How can we do to oscillate between the peaks and valleys of our brain? And the last one, the last domain we talk is about error, which is very much how do we manage to combine expectations versus actual. It's very difficult during times of change to actually achieve actual versus expectations. So PEPE model provide more than 33 strategies, really practical strategies within those 4 domains that help us to facilitate that change and to adapt positively.
It did mean that with the 33 strategies, writing practical examples of every one of them, how we could apply them, at least one practical example every time, gave me quite a lot to write about, it has to be said.
But the thing is that the book is very practical, isn't it? And you, as you said at the start, in terms of your inspiration for it was to write a practical back book for leaders to understand the neuroscience, and it is, and you got loads of diagrams and stuff in there, which really brings the book to life.
And I think that's the strength between Melanie and I together. Melanie have a vast experience practically, and the experience together with the neuroscience and PEPE model together and challenge each other. Actually, it became that sweet balance that we wanted to get.
And I think this also ties into a passion of mine, which is that I think we're all so busy at work, to read a book or even go on a course that is about what you should do rather than how do I do it? Help me. I don't want to be associated with anything where it's sort of finger wagging and telling somebody you should do this, then this, then this, because that just adds to their stress. It creates pain, reduces pleasure, as Tibi would say. So we wanted to make sure that we were giving people a real handbook of when you face this situation, here's something you can do about it, because that's empowering, it builds confidence, it reduces stress. So we're really applying the PEPE model to the way in which we wrote the book. And I think why I'm so delighted with the partnership with APMG International is that they have allowed us to run a course, and they provide a globally recognized certificate in neuroscience for change at work, so that people can actually not only learn from the book, but they can work with others on a course. They can apply these practical examples to their own situation. And as they're learning, they get a digital badge that recognizes that they have studied neuroscience for change. So I'm really pleased that that practical application is also reflected on the course, not just this book.
That's excellent. So have you got any practical examples?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to go first and then I'll come in?
Yeah. I can put a great example for the PEPE model, and let's take the error one, which is a very important one. It is about how can we make to release what we call positive signals. And one of the best ways is we usually communicate change. When communicate people communicate change, they focus on what it is changing. Big news, we are going to have a new building, we are moving to a new office, we are having a new software. Whereas the brain is having a huge error. And what we should do is to communicate what it is remain the same, what is not changing. And I think if we learn as leaders how to emphasize what is not changing, we decrease that error. So this is a great practical example. And in the book, we talk how to do it.
For me, I think knowing that the brain absorbs so much energy, it takes 20% of our oxygen usage. So it is much higher in terms of demanding energy than the rest of the body. And therefore we focus in on how can we make change as easy as possible? How can we reduce the energy of it? And one of the things that aligns to work I've already done, which is around a more agile change approach, is, well, hang on, why are you asking the brain to really focus in on everything you're planning to do for the next year? And this is very apposite considering a lot of people are currently doing their 2025 plans. Yes, talk about what you want to have achieved by the end of 2025, but get people focusing in on just the first month of 2025 and the actions they have to take. Otherwise, you're asking their brain to hold and process and retain all that information about the whole year, which anyway is subject to change because circumstances alter as we go through. So I think there was something about how this aligned very much to an agile way of working. And for me, it's been being able to sort of apply that against scientific stardust, to being able to say an agile way of working is a really brain smart way of working. And giving people, therefore, the rationale and the practical rationale to say, do you know what? We need to work in a more iterative planning way than this waterfall traditional, let's plan everything up front and aim for a complete delivery, big bang approach in about a year's time, because that's not brain smart.
Because it's the classic, story, isn't it? How do you need to eat an elephant? A small piece at a time, isn't it? And rather than saying, here's the big elephant. And I totally understand that. I've been in situations where you sit there and someone presents this is the big vision. And your brain is going, or you're thinking about it's snowing outside and I need to leave or something like that. So I totally understand. What are some common neurological barriers to change?
Yes, I would say one of them is pain, because our brain perceives social pain and emotional pain the same as physical pain. And I would say our brain is not wired for change. However, our brain is wired to adapt, and this is how we started. It might, if we don't take care about that barrier, which is the pain, change feels painful even if we want to change, just because in the new operating model, in the new system, I don't know how my status will it be. I don't know if I will keep this, if I will have the same skills. I don't know how am I going to talk to others. I don't know if I'm going to be part of the same group or not. From evolutionary perspective, I don't know if I'm going to survive. And some people literally say if the war, oh, another change. Am I going to survive this one? I think that is one of the biggest barriers that we have.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, we talk pain, I'm going to talk pleasure. I think recognizing that the brain absolutely processes change as a painful thing. What it has done for me in my own practice with all the transformations I'm involved in is it's questioned, how can I make this more pleasurable? And understanding how the brain creates pleasure from, for example, certainty. If I know what's coming up next, if I know how I'm going to be supported, if the brain feels like there are some knowns around here, not everything is uncertain and ambiguous, then it can calm down and go, actually, this is okay. This is not going to be so bad. So I think there's something here about everything that I do. I question myself. Is this making it more enjoyable, more pleasurable? Is it giving the brain what it really wants? So Certainty is definitely one of those. Respect and value. Do I feel that actually I have a say in this? How much autonomy can I give people, or empowerment that they can self-direct their actions, because that is very pleasurable? Do I feel that they are part of a sort of a tribe, as Tibby's mentioned? Do I feel that therefore I'm pointing out who else they'll get to work with, how they can build their network, and therefore connect with other people, feel that bonding, feel that trust with others? So every single thing in the course leads me to think about, how can I build that more pleasurable aspect of change?
I think that's fantastic, Mel. Thank you. And we've had a comment from Indy Tatler, who says, "Love that, Tibby. Bring light to what is not changing." So thank you for that. Quick question. So how do leaders sustain motivation in a change environment?
This is a great question, Tim. And we know from the brain perspective, motivation is about dopamine. So if we want to help with motivation, is about how we can, in a sustainable way, release dopamine. The problem is that we are addicted to dopamine. Once we increase the baselines of dopamine, we want more and more. So even though motivation is about dopamine and finding new ways, positive ways to release dopamine, it is also about balancing. And that is the key. And that is where peaks and valleys from PEPE models come so relevant here. Motivation, it's about trying to make people to take risk within a psychological safety, come out, rest, goes to the valleys, enjoy the oxytocin that it comes as a result of being part of the tribe, being part of the group. Then go and have some peaks of endorphins. How? By celebration, trying to find a systematical way, build habits of celebration, and then goes down those endorphins and bring back again the dopamine. So that oscillation, because our brain works really well for oscillating. That's the best way to keep motivation. And that's, in my experience working with leaders, that's what it have worked the best.
I've certainly got an example where, as a result of writing the book, I think it's changed my practice with senior leaders, because one of the things that I'm now able to say to them is that I know the urge is to rush on and go, what's next, what's next, what's next? But that doesn't give the peaks and valleys, that oscillation that Tibby's talking about. So giving them some techniques at a senior leadership level that trickles down to everybody else, which is about, we've had a delivery, we've shifted our ways of working. We can run some activities now which helps people stay in the present for some time while they can absorb that achievement. They can catch up with themselves and understand, if you like, create a new baseline of where they are now. That creates that dopamine, absolutely, that feeling of achievement, which leads to the energy and motivation to go on to the next wave of change. But I also say to my senior leaders, you get real benefit out of doing this. Just focusing on the present isn't just a motivational tool for individuals right now, but what it will also do, and it's connected to something else we talk about a lot in the course and the book, is about having insights. If I can use some techniques where I get people to recognize what they have achieved so far, where they are now, how it aligns to all the other changes taking place, what you will get is you will get moments of insight and recognition of, oh, we should do more of that. And, oh, we shouldn't bother with that anymore. Particularly if I can get those achievements discussed socially so that people can hear each other's insights, which brings in a fantastic source of information. So at the end of every wave of change, and I tend to work in sort of iterations, maybe 3-4 months, then what we do is we actually sit back and go, everybody, let's see where we've got to. It squeezes the value out of everything we've just done, gives us fantastic insights and energy to carry on to the next wave. That is a sustainable change approach, I think.
So we've had 2 comments, one from Charles Muffama, who says, neuroscience for change, brilliant. We've had a comment from Jennifer Chen, feed the what's in it for me, and a listener or watcher of many of my videos, Andrew Slessor, that says this is a fascinating subject, not only for business, but for life skills as well.
Yes. It's changing the way I engage with my partner. He has not read the book, and I don't want him to now, because I don't want him to know where
all the secrets
coming from.
So Tibisay Vera and Melanie Franklin, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book, Neuroscience for Change, Practical Insights to Overcome Workforce Resistance to Organizational Change. So if I wanted to buy a copy, where can I get one?
You can get one on the Kogan Page website. You can get it on Amazon, or you can talk to us and you can get it free because you've come on one of our courses, because it's part of the set text for the exam.
There you go. So Tibi and Mel, where can we find you?
Capabilityforchange.com or Melanie Franklin 1 on LinkedIn. And I accept lots of requests. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I will make sure that you're also joined to the Change Capability Community, which is a networking group where you can share your thoughts about practical change.
Excellent. And
you can find me in PEPENeuroscience.com or my consultancy, which is sparklingperformance.com. And I am in LinkedIn everywhere. So you just type, there are not many Tibisays out there. So I bet you write Tibisay and that will be me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for writing the book. It's an excellent book. It's such an important subject, and for all leaders out there, they need